My presentation today will be about urban heterotopias, which is my PhD research subject. And I'm working on this subject for 1.5 years now. It's been a long time, but still it's a very complex subject, and there is no a single word or a single property that could describe all of the heterotopias in one single sentence. So this complexity and incoherence in Foucault's ideas left me with these different ideas. And I will start my words with my research question. So we can say that heterotopias reflect the urban environment in many different ways. And the question is here, and we can say that these areas in the urban environment, how we can approach them, these heterotopic settings, to understand how they function. So this was my research question. This is a very wide question, but it's important to understand how heterotopia works today. So my aim is learning from heterotopias, because there are many heterotopias, many types of heterotopias, and we can see that they function very differently. But some of them are very resilient in the environment, and they stay for centuries, and some of them collapse. How do they stay resilient, or why do they stay resilient, and how do they, or why do they collapse, is one of my questions as well. So within that, my approach is dual. I started by theoretical approach, and I started to understand what heterotopia is from Foucault's viewpoint, and that I will explain. And come into my hermeneutic approaches, the two approaches that I have into my theoretical approach, and then I will go to my empirical approach, which is more based on space syntax and semantic understanding of these heterotopias into urban settings. So in a theoretical approach, we will see that today I will try to explain heterotopias with 6 principles of Foucault's of other spaces, and these principles, types, and signs that he calls examples, that I call signs, and my approach to interpret it in an urban viewpoint. And the questions and lags, the things that remain, and also how it reflects to the urban environment, and these examples that I will give. But today I will concentrate on the first part, Foucault's heterotopias, and the examples in the urban environment. So first principle, so we are starting to define heterotopias here. We can, sorry, I have to read. Every culture in the world produces heterotopias, is the first one. And these heterotopias can take several forms, and there is not a single form of heterotopia in the world. There are various forms of heterotopias. And also, Foucault defines 2 types of heterotopias: heterotopias of crisis and heterotopias of deviation in the first principle. So these ones, heterotopias of crisis, are the ones where people living in those heterotopias are in the state of crisis, in a liminal state, in a transition state. So these are, for example, he gives the examples of boarding schools, the boys or the girls in the boarding school, or military service, for example. Or he also gives the example in another type of heterotopias of deviation. And the heterotopias of deviation are the heterotopias where people deviated from the norms are present. So these can be psychiatric hospitals or prisons or retirement homes. But people are somehow deviated from the norms of society, and they are not accepted in society. So they are more, these heterotopias work as a control mechanism to make life possible for them. So in my urban interpretation to this principle was the line that you see there in an urban setting that signifies the class difference and urban segregation with a very clear line, because the lifestyles are so different at two sides of these areas. One is very poor and the other is very rich, and these don't intersect. But gentrification examples are more blurry lines. For example, this area is in Istanbul, and this building on your right is belonging to homeless people. And there's a Starbucks cafe right next to it. So it's really strange to find these transitions in the urban area. So it's a kind of an urban deviation that we can say. But the question that comes into our minds here is, what is the societal norm? So we can see Rio there, for example, and the favelas, and a majority of the cities favelas. So is it a societal norm or is it not? So that is a question that remains unanswered in Foucault. He has this Western view, mostly. The second principle says that every heterotopia has a function, and this function can change throughout the course of history. And his example to that is only one, and it's the cemetery. And he tries to understand how the cemetery has changed throughout history, how its meaning has changed throughout history. But the real question here is about urban spaces. In real urban spaces, there are some heterotopias which have a different course that break at one point and change to something else. For example, we have an urban reuse project from Istanbul again. And this is a power plant which was not sufficient to provide electricity for the whole city, and it was abandoned for a long time. And then it was turned to a university campus, and it started a new life, which was controversial because the area wasn't really suitable for a university campus, neither for a power plant maybe, but again, these things can change throughout their lives and they can become something else, meaning-wise or function-wise. The third principle is that heterotopias bring many incompatible things together in the same real single place. So I am very confused by Foucault's examples here, because he talks about theaters, cinemas, and Oriental Garden, which is it's messy examples really, because we cannot understand if it's really functional or meaning-wise that he meant that these places were incompatible in themselves. We don't really know. He explains, but I'm not really convinced, I would say. So I will give my own examples. So this one, it's the first slide, and it's the Colonial city. It's a mixed-use area. It's a very condensed mixed-use area. This was in China, and this was, I guess, demolished in early 90s. And this area was filled with different functions that are not really in coherence with each other, but all those people, it's a huge shanty town, and they lived together for several decades. So that's an interesting viewpoint to look at the subject, because it's very incompatible and it's very condensed. But, for example, the layering of the city can be a functional view of these incompatibilities as well, because all we can see in Leal area, for example, is just a mall, but underneath there is, I guess, 7 different metro lines that cross each other, and it's really huge, and that's I guess there is a condensation in this area, and this condensation means something incompatible to the city, even if it's a big city like Paris. And this example is from Istanbul, and cultures cannot be sometimes compatible, because there are several cultures throughout the history. Istanbul has been home for many cultures and many religions. So these people lived in the same city for centuries. And in this district, for example, there are synagogues, there are churches, there are mosques together, and people also live together in these areas. And this is an incompatibility, but a condensed incompatibility in a cultural viewpoint. The fourth principle is related to slices in time. You can see that Foucault is very pretty, right? In this, there is no a coherent way of evolving or explaining heterotopias, but just several views of heterotopias. When I explain those things, coming like a weak point to me, but so he defines 2 different types of heterochronies. He calls it heterochronies, and these are time accumulating or time collecting heterochronies and temporary heterochronies. When I think about slices in time and complete rupture with slices in time, or the traditional time, I think about Pompeii, because Pompeii is a place which froze in time, and we discovered it as it is, but it was centuries ago. So it's a very different example that Foucault didn't mention, of course, because Pompeii was not found at the time, but he mentions time collecting heterochronies as museums and libraries. So they are collecting everything from different times in history. Or he mentions temporary heterochronies as well, like fairgrounds and holiday villages. These are really fleeting things. These are coming and going in like 3 weeks or that amount of time. So the urban interpretations for time collecting heterochronies for me is again these historical neighborhoods where there are some landmarks who have lived, they're not living actually, but who have been there for centuries, and they have accumulated different people's like experiences and so forth. Like this building, for example, it's a church in Kuzguncu, and also as a temporary heterochrony, we can mention Olympic game areas. They are designed, they are made, they are used, and they become disused at the end most of the time. So it's kind of a temporary heterochrony, we can say. According to fifth principle, which is one of the most important principles to me, it's about publicness of urban areas, and it takes heterotopias as opening and closing systems. There are two types of heterotopias in this too. Closed or restricted areas, these are two types, again, in themselves. Closed, like prisons or barracks, or restricted access areas like Muslim hammams and Scandinavian saunas that we should fulfill some rituals to enter. Or you can enter it's another type of heterotopia, that you can enter the heterotopia, but your entry is illusory. You are not really connected to that area, and you don't feel at home. Foucault gives the examples of Brazilian guest rooms. But today I will talk about, for restricted access areas, I will talk about contested spaces. So this space is the center of Istanbul. It's the Taksim Gezi Park area. And there has been protests in 2013. And this area was planned to be a mall, and people opposed to that. And after cutting off these 5 trees over there, the situation here has changed. People camped here for days to not let the people do a mall there, but after that, the protests started and the riots started to produce, and police made this area like an open-air prison to that people. So this was not easily accessible. This was accessible, but it wasn't okay. It was disturbing in some way. So this is an example. This is an interesting example to me for open-air, but really it's the most public area that could be, but it's not. Again, gentrification areas are more illusory kind of things, because as you see, these people, these hipster-looking, probably architecture students, are belonging there, some kind of. They seem to blend in. But people who are really living in those areas, are they really belonging to that area anymore? That is the question. So that may be an interesting approach to this issue as well. So it's the last principle of heterotopia, and I don't really see as two types, because heterotopias, Foucault says, 2 types of heterotopias again in the 6th principle: heterotopias of illusion and heterotopias of the other. But the heterotopias of the other are not in the context for some reason, because he gives the examples of colonial architecture, for example, and something that is not fitting there because somebody else did it in the place of these people living in the city. So it's not fitting there, but again, it's an illusion. So I will just see it as an illusion, and I will give the examples of brand cities and the Bilbao effect. So the Bilbao effect, for example, how many of us did go to Bilbao or knew Bilbao before this Franchieri building? Because what I think about Bilbao it's like this building. So I think it's interesting in that way to see things devouring cities. So my empirical approach, we will proceed to my empirical approach very rapidly. And from these examples that I made, I will go through examples only that I found in Istanbul, but in relation to those examples that I've explained worldwide. So, and I will make the syntactic analysis diachronically in urban scale. And afterwards, I'm passing to the neighborhood level. And in the neighborhood level, I'm taking just one very important area for me. And I'm examining the timeline, the historical research in that area, and I will make points on heterochronies, juxtapositions, and highly heterotopic cases, which can appear as illusions in my case. So, first of all, the Istanbul historical peninsula area, we have 5 different neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods are defined as multicultural neighborhoods, 2 of them, Samatya and Fenerbalat. And one of them is urban transportation node, Yenikapı. And 2 of them are gentrification areas, Galata and Karaköy. And they are placed in the map, as you see. Galata and Karaköy are on the other side. Is the Golden Horn, that part. And Yenikapı is on the south. Samatya and Fenerbalat is on the either coasts. So, do you see it? Yeah, that's bad. I will look at from that. So, what I did here, I won't go through too much detail, but global integration and local integration is 2 movement. 2 movement says that the redder areas are filled with more socioeconomic activities. They're more accessible. They're places that people come together. And local integration makes it local centers. And topological choice analysis are the true movements. So with higher metrical radius, it says that these are the roads, the redder roads that is seen, are the roads that I would choose to go across town. Or the redder roads on the lower metrical radius are the roads that, or the paths that I would choose to go across neighborhood. So my choice, this angular thing, my choice to go through the city. So it's a true movement. So what I do here is there is six different times, and on this timeline I'm seeing that I will go to the end and I will tell the results directly. So global integration wise, Yenikapı is becoming a huge center. It's going strong, and local and global integrations are huge at the end. It's the fact about Yenikapı, and we can say that the fact that it's becoming a transportation node heterotopia is really strongly seen on this analysis. But again, we cannot really see, especially in these, the 2 movement areas, we cannot really see if Samatya, Fenerbalat or Karaköy or Galata has really changed. But we can see in the other maps that, the true movement maps, that Samatya and Fenerbalat are, Samatya is less accessible, Fenerbahçe is more accessible. So, but we can see in the real world that Samatya works better than Fenerbahçe. So why? Why is the question that leads me to work Samatya on a neighborhood level. That's why I choose Samatya. But the other ones are making sense also, because the roads that I would choose to go across neighborhood are becoming more yellowish, and that means that it becomes more safe in that I see in a way that I can move really easily in the city throughout Galata and Karaköy. So the thing that lead me to Samatya was this. And this is the schema that I would proceed in my neighborhood research. First of all, I will go through the maps, the ancient maps, and the history of Samatya. And Samatya, as you see, is the Byzantine map, and these are the Theodosian walls. And Via Ignatia is the road of victory. So they're going through Samatya, and this is a road with various celebrations when they're coming back from the war in the past. So in the 18th century and so on, this becomes something like this. And there are many various cultures related to those areas, and we can see Armenian church, for example, here. This is the Armenian church, and we can see the mosque here. It's a small Greek church. And I don't know if you know, but it's a very important brand of drums, cymbals, and Zinjian. This was originated in Samatya. It's a very worldwide known brand. So history of Samatya goes to, for example, this people are mostly on the sea, but the relation with the sea decreased bit by bit, and they're more into the closed areas right now. The main reason to that is because the orthogonal plan in Samatya, this was implemented in the 1800s, and the main reason behind that is the fires. There were several fires because of the wooden houses, and this area was reviewed as an orthogonal plan, and for preventing the fires, because we needed more space between the buildings. So on the timeline we can see that, I won't go through detail, but Istanbul was conquered or fell. And then several mosques are built, of course, and the fire starts in the 1600s, and then the urban planning was made, and then several fires again, and rebuilt buildings again and again. So this is the timeline, and rapidly I will go through my research about this area. So I'm talking about two things today, heterochronies and juxtapositions. The two are part of the three-part research. So heterochronies are places that I tried to explain in Kuzguncuk. The landmarks that stayed for a long time, time collecting heterotopia or heterochronies that Foucault once mentioned, but in the city. How could that happen? For example, churches that are very important for the existence of a neighborhood. or a mosque or a school. Cultural hubs, I call them, and additionally, I call them heterotopias, of course. But these are marked on the, as you can see, black dots, and their integration analysis has been made. Many other analysis has been made, of course, but I only show you this part because it's very long. And you can see that integration has dropped a lot. A lot of them. Hacı Kadın Mosque excluded. It's because the area gets really condensed and squished. And there is no breathing area. So we cannot really, the area and the perimeter analysis go really down, decrease. But one thing is to see that areas, that landmarks going strong or reducing their importance in the visual urban area. So, the first one is the Armenian church, Surkevork, and Kiparisas church, and Minas Greek church, Armenian Catholic school, and Sahakyan Armenian school. These are my landmarks and juxtapositions. So juxtapositions is about housing. The red dots are Greek houses and the blue dots are Armenian houses. So what I'm trying to do here is seeing the clusters or the scattering of people around the neighborhood and how they are placed in this area. For example, you can see that blue houses are around an orthogonal plan, and these are very integrated. But Greek houses are not. It's interesting because it's inverse, usually, because Greek is that way, and Turkish and other that way, but it has nothing to do to, so it's an implementation plan, so it has nothing to do with the cultures of these people. To VGA comparison, but this one means more, so I will pass through this rapidly. I am making, as a first part of juxtapositions plan, I'm making the community footprint. What is a community footprint? It's the people living in those areas with small points, as you can see there, and the big points are their cultural hubs. So their footprint is this area in 65. And I'm doing an average value analysis here. I did this for, I'm sorry, I didn't change the title, but it's for this year. This year this has become something like this. And some of them augmented, some of them decreased. The isolist area and the connectivity decreased, but the others augmented. And the last thing that I want to do is on street level, the street that they use. I will try to do it with, it's ongoing, so I won't really explain in detail, but the street network, so how they use it, these areas, for example, using intervisibility, we can define the streets and how throughout history these people have used these streets and how they have been a part of these streets, how life has been in this historical time. And also, as a second part of I will try to make a cross-cultural pattern. As you can see here, there are some parts where Armenians and Greeks, and of course Turkish people, are coming together in closer in some areas, and these are cross-cultural points. So I will try to explain and examine them with this not very clear but street network based research. And my final question would be, at the end of the thesis, how would a possible redefinition of heterotopia, of urban heterotopias would be? Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.